I told my best friend I'd rather chew glass than take back what I wrote about Marcus's performance issues, but that's because nobody understands I was drowning in that relationship. The post I made wasn't just petty complaining, it was a lifeline I threw into the void, and now it's dragging me under. My sister won't let her kids near me, my boss side-eyes me in meetings, and Marcus's new girlfriend has turned our entire friend group into her personal cheering section. They think I'm a monster who emasculated him publicly for sport. What they don't know is that I found his secret Tinder account 3 months before I ever opened my laptop to vent. But the real reason I'm telling this story starts 6 weeks ago, when Marcus sent me a single emoji that shattered every justification I'd built my defense on. By the time you hear what I did with his therapist's voicemail, you'll wonder why I wasn't worse. The problems started so quietly I thought I was imagining them. Marcus would come home from his accounting job, kiss my cheek with the same enthusiasm you'd use for a great aunt, and disappear into his home office. 8 months into our lease, we were averaging sex maybe twice a month. I tried everything: lingerie that cost more than my car payment, scheduling intimacy like it was a dentist appointment, even that just touch each other for 5 minutes therapy trick. He'd pat my back like I was a troubled student, and say he was just tired. I started tracking rejections in my phone notes, a pathetic little calendar of no's that grew longer than my grocery list. The truth is, I began to hate my own body, standing in front of the mirror at 2 a.m. wondering if my thighs were the reason he couldn't stay interested. When I found the first receipt for a hotel room in his gym bag, my hands shook so hard I dropped my phone on the bathroom tile. That crack in my screen felt like permission, like the universe was telling me I was already broken so I might as well keep going. I convinced myself I wasn't snooping when I checked his phone while he shampooed his hair. The water had been running for 7 minutes. That's plenty of time to scroll through notifications. His Tinder profile was active, updated with photos I'd taken of him on our Cape Cod trip last summer. The bio said, "Just looking for connection, nothing serious." My throat closed up. I wanted to throw the phone through the shower door, but instead I screenshot everything and emailed it to myself. When he came out in his towel, I was sitting on our bed, perfectly calm, like a woman about to sign a mortgage instead of detonate her life. He admitted he'd been swiping for months, swore he'd never met anyone in person, said my constant need for validation had suffocated him until creating a fake life felt like his only escape route. I should have thrown his clothes out the window. I should have called my mom and cried. Instead, I opened Reddit and typed out every detail: the screenshots, the rejection tally, the way he'd flinch when I reached for him. The comments poured in like gasoline on a house fire. Leave his ass. He's gaslighting you. Document everything. For the first time in a year, I felt like I could breathe. That's when the posts started climbing, upvoted faster than I could refresh. My inbox flooded with messages from strangers calling Marcus a narcissist, asking for more details, wanting to help me expose him. I added the screenshots of his Tinder messages, pixelating names but leaving his face visible. Someone asked about his equipment problems, and I answered honestly about the times he'd lose interest mid-act, how he'd blame stress from work. I posted our text exchanges where I begged for intimacy, and he replied with excuses about quarterly reports. By midnight, I had 12,000 upvotes, and a sense of righteousness that tasted like cheap champagne. My phone buzzed with a DM from someone claiming to know Marcus, saying they'd always suspected something was off with him. I validated their suspicions, shared details about his childhood trauma that he'd told me in confidence. When my best friend texted at 3 a.m. saying, "Maybe take that down before it goes viral," I told her she was being paranoid. The internet was on my side. Justice was finally happening. Then Marcus's sister found it. The message came while I was in a meeting with my team lead, discussing the Henderson account. My phone lit up with a string of texts from a number I hadn't saved but recognized immediately. "You're a disgusting human being. My brother is suicidal, and you're making memes about his dick problems." I read it 3 times, my face frozen in a professional smile as my coworker asked if I was okay. I typed back without thinking, "Maybe if you'd cared about his mental health sooner, he wouldn't have been on dating apps while we lived together." The response was immediate: "He was on there because you told him he was broken. He has depression, you fucking sociopath." I locked my phone and managed to finish the presentation, but my hands were trembling so badly I knocked over my water bottle. That wasn't even the worst thing I did that week. The post had already been cross-posted to Twitter by the time I got home. I found out when my coworker Jenna sent me a screenshot at 7 p.m. Pathetic Marcus was trending in our city, attached to a thread of women sharing my screenshots with mocking commentary. Someone had made a TikTok reenacting our text conversations, using a squeaky voice for Marcus and a villain filter for me. My attempt to delete the original post failed. Automod had already removed it for doxing, but not before 3 different subreddits archived it. I spent 4 hours filing DMCA takedowns, sending frantic emails to Reddit admins, but the internet had already done what the internet does. Marcus moved out while I was at work the next day. I came home to half the furniture gone, his key on the kitchen counter, and a note that just said, "I hope it was worth it." My mother called at 9 p.m., her voice tight with disappointment. "Your aunt saw something online. Is it true you humiliated that boy?" I tried to explain, but she cut me off. Some things should stay private, even when you're hurting. The Henderson account got reassigned by Thursday. My boss called me into his office, closed the door, and asked if I was handling personal matters appropriately. Someone had emailed HR screenshots of my Reddit username tied to my real name. The company's online conduct policy meant I wasn't fired, but I was suddenly not the right fit for client-facing work. They moved me to data entry, a demotion in everything but name, and my promotion review got pushed indefinitely. I told myself it was fine, that Marcus had cost me more than just my dignity. I created a secondary Reddit account to defend myself in the lingering threads, pretending to be a neutral observer who knew both parties. I wrote that Marcus had been distant for years, that any man would struggle with intimacy if they were being tracked and tallied. The lies came easier than the truth. Then I saw the first photo of Marcus with his new girlfriend, posted by a mutual friend who'd apparently chosen sides. They were at the farmer's market, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing at something off camera. I zoomed in on her face, pretty in that effortless way, no makeup, hair in a messy bun. The caption read, "Love seeing my boy happy again." That's when I made my worst decision yet. I found her Instagram through tagged photos, a watercolor artist with 2,000 followers, and a feed full of nature shots and mental health advocacy posts. I crafted a message that felt helpful in my twisted state. "Hey, not sure if you know about Marcus's past, but I thought you should be aware of some patterns." I attached the screenshots I'd taken months ago, the Tinder profile, the rejection texts, my own documentation of his failures. I hit send at 2 a.m., my heart racing with a sick sort of triumph. I was protecting her, I told myself. She deserved to know what kind of man he was. She read it immediately. I saw the checkmark appear and didn't respond. The next morning, Marcus's new girlfriend posted a story A screenshot of my message with the caption, "This is what accountability looks like, ladies. Don't let your ex's trauma become your weapon." She'd tagged me. I still hadn't told anyone about the therapist's voicemail I'd saved. Then the real unraveling began. I saw them at the coffee shop near our old apartment, the one where Marcus and I used to get Sunday morning lattes. I was across the street, frozen on the sidewalk like a deer that had mistaken headlights for salvation. He looked different, gained maybe 10 pounds, in a good way, like he'd started eating real meals again. She said something that made him throw his head back and laugh, a sound so familiar and foreign it cracked something in my chest. I bolted into the bookstore next door and hyperventilated in the self-help section, a clerk asking if I needed water. That night I drank an entire bottle of wine and composed a Reddit update, titled "The Aftermath of Calling Out My Ex." I detailed how Marcus had abandoned me, how his new relationship was a rebound, how I was the real victim of betrayal. I refreshed the comments every 30 seconds, desperate for validation that never came. The top comment said, "Maybe he's happy because you're not in his life anymore." I deleted the post and blocked the user. That's when my support system began to crumble. My best friend Lauren came over with Thai food, sat on my couch while I cried into pad Thai, and finally said what she'd been holding back. "Did you ever love him, or did you just want to win?" I screamed at her, accused her of taking his side, threw the leftovers across the room. The coconut curry left a stain on the wall that still hasn't come out. She left without another word, and when I texted her 3 days later, she replied she needed space. Marcus's mom called me the following Tuesday, her voice thick with tears. "He's in therapy again. The posts, the messages you sent him, he's having panic attacks." I wanted to tell her about his Tinder, about the hotel receipt, about the way he'd look through me like I was glass. Instead I said, "I hope he gets the help he needs," and hung up. The voicemail from his therapist had been saved on my phone for months, a 3-minute message intended for Marcus that I'd heard when his phone was unlocked. "Marcus, We need to discuss your medication adjustment and how it's affecting your libido. Your depression scores are improving, but the side effects are clearly impacting your relationship. Someone at my gym asked point blank if I'd take the posts down. I was in the locker room, changing after a pointless attempt to sweat out my anxiety, when a woman I barely knew cornered me by the showers. "You're the one who destroyed that guy online, right? My friend is dating him now, he's a mess." I wrapped my towel tighter, mumbled that it was already out there that I couldn't control the internet. She stared at me like I'd kicked a puppy. "You could apologize," she said. "You could take responsibility." I laughed, a high-pitched, desperate sound. "It's on dating apps while we lived together," she shook her head. "And you decided to destroy him instead of leaving. Who's worse?" I skipped the gym for 3 weeks after that. I was setting up the biggest revelation, drafting a public apology blog that I rewrote 17 times but never published. Every version sounded like excuses wrapped in pretty words. The truth I was sitting on was worse than anything they'd imagined. 6 weeks ago, Marcus sent me the eggplant emoji on Instagram. No context, no message, just that stupid purple cartoon. I stared at it for an hour, my mind spinning through possibilities. Was he mocking me? Was it a mistake? Was his new girlfriend using his phone? Then I saw her post, an hour later, a photo of Marcus in a kitchen I didn't recognize, looking comfortable and relaxed, captioned, "Finally found someone who appreciates all of me." My throat closed. I'd known about his depression, technically. He'd mentioned therapy, mentioned medication changes. But I treated it like an excuse, another way he was failing me. The voicemail from his therapist wasn't just a message I'd overheard, it was a weapon I'd considered using. When I found his journal, tucked under our bed while packing his things after he'd left, I'd read the entries where he wrote about feeling like a burden, about how my needs with a capital N made his anxiety spike, about how he couldn't tell if his medication or my disappointment was making him more numb. I'd photographed those pages. I'd almost posted them. The full confession starts with this: I was drowning, yes, but I was also holding his head underwater. I posted screenshots of his journal entries to a private Facebook group for women with low libido partners, disguising them as my own situation. I wanted validation more than I wanted to protect his privacy. I wanted strangers to tell me I wasn't crazy, that his mental illness didn't excuse neglect. I got exactly that, 200 comments agreeing that depression was no excuse for abandoning your partner sexually. Someone asked for more details about his excuses, and I provided them, quoting his private writings about trauma responses and panic attacks. That post got shared to a mental health advocacy page, where it was rightfully torn apart as abuse. But it was anonymous, untraceable back to me. Or so I thought. Marcus's new girlfriend, that watercolor artist with her nature photos and her advocacy work, she monitors those groups. She recognized the language, the specific phrases he'd only ever written in that journal. She messaged the admin, got my IP address through some technical witchcraft I still don't understand, and connected it to the original Reddit post. The most damning detail isn't what I posted, it's what I saved. When Marcus's therapist left that voicemail, it wasn't just on his phone. It was on our shared house line, the one we kept for emergencies. I'd saved it to my own device before he could hear it. For weeks, while I was posting and ranting and documenting his failures, I had concrete medical proof that his low libido was a medication side effect, not rejection of me. I would listen to it on my commute, that woman's voice explaining how common this was, how it didn't reflect his feelings for me, how it would likely improve with time. Then I'd open Reddit and type another complaint about how he was frigid, damaged, incapable of real intimacy. I was torturing myself on purpose, building evidence for a case I'd already won in my mind. When I contacted his therapist's office, pretending to be Marcus's worried partner trying to coordinate care, I wasn't seeking help. I was fishing for more details to use against him. The receptionist gave me his next appointment date, and I showed up. Sat in the parking lot. Took photos of him going inside to post with some vague caption about therapy not fixing everything. His new girlfriend is a mental health advocate who recognized the signs immediately. She didn't just find my posts. She understood what they meant. She saw a man recovering from depression whose ex had weaponized his symptoms. In one of her own posts, which I stalked obsessively, she wrote about partners who see mental illness as personal attacks. The comments were full of people sharing similar stories, calling me a textbook example of ableist abuse. She never mentioned me by name, but she didn't have to. The timeline matched up perfectly. When she posted that photo of Marcus in her kitchen, the caption about appreciating all of me wasn't just romantic. It was a direct response to my message warning her about his patterns. She was showing me that she knew, and that she didn't care about my warnings because she understood the context I deliberately omitted. The final shoe dropped when I realized she'd been the one to send my boss those screenshots. She hadn't just defended Marcus. She'd systematically dismantled my life, piece by piece, using my own words as the wrecking ball. And she was right to do it. I've lost 15 pounds since September, living on coffee and the sick adrenaline of checking their profiles. My boss officially demoted me last month, citing character concerns that impact team cohesion. Someone had forwarded him the mental health advocacy post, where I was named as the abusive ex. My own therapist terminated our sessions after I admitted what I'd done, saying she couldn't work with someone who violated consent so fundamentally. I'm blocked by our entire friend group, every single person who'd been in our wedding party photos, the ones where I'm beaming and Marcus looks quietly happy in a way I didn't appreciate. When I run into acquaintances at the grocery store, they pretend not to see me. My mother has stopped asking about my love life. My younger sister, who used to call me for relationship advice, is dating someone new and hasn't brought him to a family dinner in 4 months. I'm the cautionary tale now, the story people tell about what not to do when a relationship ends. The unexpected consequence I never anticipated is how thoroughly I've become invisible. Not hated, not discussed, just erased. But the moment of genuine self-awareness broke through at 3 a.m. last Tuesday. I was 3 glasses into a bottle of wine, scrolling through her profile again, when I saw a painting she'd posted. It was abstract, all blues and grays with a single bright yellow stroke cutting through the middle. The caption read, "For anyone who's been made to feel their illness is a moral failing. You are not the darkness, you are the light fighting through it." I recognized the composition. It was based on a photo from our Cape Cod trip, the one where Marcus is laughing at something I said. I remembered that moment. We'd been happy, or I'd thought we were. He was already in therapy then, already struggling, but I'd been too wrapped up in my own narrative of rejection to see his effort. The painting had 50 comments, all praising her for capturing his resilience. That's when I understood I hadn't just been venting. I'd been punishing him for being sick, for needing something I couldn't provide, for being human in a way that inconvenienced my ego. The post wasn't about his sex drive. It was about my inability to sit with discomfort, to love someone through something that wasn't about me. This is where I am now, living alone in an apartment I can't afford, checking her profile 40 times a day. I know his medication has changed because she posted about side effects, asking her followers for advice on supporting a partner through the adjustment. I know they're talking about moving in together because she saved a post about decorating small spaces. I know he's doing better because she shared a photo of him running a 5K, something he stopped doing when his depression got bad. The trigger for finally writing all this down came yesterday when she posted a reel set to some indie song, clips of their ordinary life, grocery shopping, cooking, him reading while she paints. The caption read, "Found someone who loves even the unpolished parts." My finger hovered over the block button, but I couldn't do it. I need to see it, need to witness the life I could have had if I hadn't chosen destruction over compassion. Maybe that's my final punishment, worse than the job demotion or the lost friends watching him thrive in a relationship that does all the things I claimed I wanted. So go ahead, tell me I deserve this. Tell me I'm a monster who weaponized her partner's mental illness for internet points and a fleeting sense of vindication. Just remember you weren't there when I was begging him to touch me while he was texting his therapist that he couldn't get out of bed. You didn't see the hotel receipt, or the Tinder notifications, or the way he'd roll over and face the wall like I was a stranger. The difference between justice and revenge is timing, and I posted too early, before I had the full story. But don't think for a second that my cruelty came from nowhere. It came from a place of screaming into silence, of being told my needs were too much while he was quietly deciding I wasn't enough. The emoji he sent wasn't mocking. It was closure. He'd finally found someone who understood what I refused to learn, that love isn't about performance, it's about showing up even when you're broken. I showed up with a camera and a Reddit account. She showed up with patience and paintbrushes. He picked. We all lost something, but I was the only one who gambled with someone else's pain. That's on me. But if you're going to judge, make sure you're judging the whole story, not just the part that went viral.